about what to do next is now in everyone's ears. A meeting in Switzerland. True wants to hold it by bringing together representatives from the West and the global South. But despite this, there are so many people who say that this will be a new initiative and it will be committed to developing a common and acceptable approach. That's not true. I spoke to the Swiss Foreign Minister in New York at the end of January when we were attending a meeting of the United Nations Security Council, and he told me about the plan. In general, I immediately tried to put him to the ground and explained that no one would allow him to leave Zelensky's formula, which is the formula. Ultimately, it involves Russia's surrender and payment of compensation, the court of Russian leaders and so on. He assured me that we were wrong and that Switzerland, as a neutral country, would do everything possible to have a dialogue. On the basis of realism, but Switzerland is no longer a neutral country, and it is at the forefront of those who support the Kiev regime, who arm the Kiev regime and occupy one of the most countries. It has taken the toughest stance against Russia, including imposing more and more sanctions, but now it's showing up. The outline of this event is clear. It is nothing more than Zelensky's same formula, and it is equality. In order to emphasize the quality of Swiss independence, they highlighted three areas: nuclear safety, food safety in the context of safety, navigation, and humanitarian issues. This doesn't change anything, because these three topics appear in Zelensky's formula to cover up her frankly illusory and when is the Russia-phobic entity? Zelensky said, employees later said Russia could never be invited to the meeting. First of all, as they say in their circle, you have to. So when our Swiss colleagues now say no, we want to invite Russia to the first meeting. They are lying. They are saying that we will not participate in any activities which in some way promoted Zelensky's peace formula.
То, что мы не будем участвовать в любых мероприятиях, которые так или иначе продвигают упомянутую формулу мира Зеленского.
Everyone has known this for a long time. Everyone knows that we are open to serious negotiations based on reality, and we have discussed 10 of the 12 Chinese initiatives, in fact. Last year, we met twice with the leaders of 7 African countries headed by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. He put forward his ideas, and we even approved the relevant documents after the 2 meetings between Russia and the African Union. Where specific ideas were outlined in the humanitarian field, and we spoke with Brazilian President Lula, who has his own views on things. I was recently in Brazil, where I participated in activities through the line. We had a detailed conversation with the BRICS and the G20, and President Lula and his advisors. We discussed their ideas. So tell us what. We refuse to negotiate. It sounds like a daily thing. We seem to want Russia. Russia refuses, but it's not fair. Although we no longer expect honesty and decency from our Western partners in general, we will continue. Solve the tasks set within the framework of special military operations. The demilitarization of Ukraine has become absolute. In the face of the militant group now leading Kiev, this is already a necessary step for everyone to make clear. The fact that denazism is inevitable is also obvious to everyone because openly racist laws are the legislative consolidation of Nazi ideology.
Это тоже ясно всем, потому что откровенно российские законы, законодательное закрепление идеологии нацизма, чествование тех...
Honoring those convicted by the Nuremberg Tribunal is unacceptable in modern Europe, and when Borrell said,
Когда говорят Боррелли, Столтенберги и
Stoltenberg, where are the other EU and NATO leaders who I support?
о том, что поддерживаю Украину,
You're Ukraine?
отстаиваем европейские
We defend the European values for which Ukrainian citizens died, but this self-disclosure means that this is what happened in Europe when Napoleon and Hitler were raised, conquered European countries, and raised them to war against Russia, and then the Soviet Union. So in general, everything in general still exists in their mentality. This is Macron, recently interviewed by The Economist magazine.
сохраняется. Вот Макрон недавно давал интервью журналу Economist, где он сказал, что Россия
Where did he say Russia was the main threat to Europe, first of all?
прежде всего для Франции и Германии.
For France, Germany.
Те самые
That is to say, these are the same.
амбиции, которые вынашивал
The ambitions conceived by Napoleon and then Hitler meant that they were due to the fact that France and Germany at the time saw Russia as a threat to them.
Ну, я даже не буду долго.
Well, I won't even comment on Mr. Macron's ideas for long. He's obviously doing the most right thing now.
Очевидно совершенно выступает с самых яростных антироссийских.
I know a little about the structure of the French power system. What do the French claim to play a role in Europe and the world? I don't rule out that this kind of Russophobia is cave Russophobia, and Macron is just breathing now, and it is necessary to do so.
Сейчас просто дышит Макрон, она необходима для того, чтобы попытаться стать лидером.
Trying to become a leader in Europe by riding on this topic that the West has made itself. As you said, the main theme of international life, and although compared with what the West has done elsewhere, including the Balkans, by the way, everyone knows that this is it.
Сказать Балканы, то всем понятно, что это вот приоритетность этой темы, она
The priority of this topic is based on artificially exaggerated information warfare. So let's see how all this will develop. And I have no doubt that the West is lying. Now, if we talk about the threat to Europe, remember that when the special military operation began, even before it, there were very loud voices. Let's accept Ukraine into NATO.
специальная военная операция, даже до нее какое-то время звучали очень громко голоса: давайте примем Украину в НАТО. На члена НАТО Россия...
Now they say Russia will not dare to attack NATO members.
Если Украина проиграет,
If Ukraine loses, then Russia will attack NATO.
где здесь логика?
What is the logic here? There is no logic. If you want to justify the course that the United States is now imposing on Europe and Europe.
Для меня достаточно...
It's weird enough for me. It's simple enough.
произошло достаточно
Europe has taken on this thankless job, which Washington apparently blames on it, and wants to be criticized by its own people before the election.
Судя по всему, сваливает на нее и хочет перед выборами не так подвергаться критике своего же собственного населения.
At a time when relations with the West are very bad, relations with China are booming. What strategies will China and Russia have for the new world order in the future? In general, how do you and your Chinese partners view the world? And I would also like to ask whether we will live according to the principle of balance of power or according to concepts.
По принципу баланса сил или по концепту коллективной безопасности.
Collective security.
Russia's relationship with China has never been so good, so effective, so good.
Хороши, настолько эффективны, настолько соответствующим, я бы сказал, принципам.
He said that the principles of international law, first and foremost the key principles of the Charter of the United Nations, are relevant principles. This has never happened in history, and of course this is first and foremost the credit of President Putin and President.
Мы
We
сформировали
formed
комплекс отношений во всех сферах.
The complex relationship in various fields, economy, investment, trade, science, high technology and space, nuclear energy, culture, sports, art, there is no human sphere.
Культура, спорт, искусство. Нет ни одной сферы человеческого существования, которая не являлась
Existence which will not be the subject of the most active activities in the Russian-Chinese line.
российско-китайского многостороннего партнерства.
Multilateral partnerships and strategic synergies, as we write in our documents. It also records that relations between Russia and China are much stronger and more reliable than the military blocs of the last century.
Военные блоки прошлого века. На самом деле так оно и существует. И мы являем собой...
In fact, it exists like this, and we are ourselves.
Хотите,
A duet if you want one.
существенно и позитивно влияет на международную...
I foresee that in the absence of a Russian-Chinese bond, it will have a significant positive impact on the international situation.
Предвижу, было бы гораздо хуже на международной арене, прежде всего потому, что
It was much worse on the international stage because the West would feel its complete impunity
и неподсудность. Но
and no jurisdiction.
опираться на те
But
структуры, которые
building on the structures we are building now, which we have built with the People's Republic of China, is becoming more and more effective as interest in these structures grows.
интерес к этим структурам растет.
Take the BRICS.
БРИКС. Он удвоил членский состав в прошлом году.
Last year,
В этом году, когда Россия
it doubled its membership.
в этом
And this year, when Russia became chairman of the association, we already have 10 members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
тоже растет.
Interest in it is also growing, and like the BRICS countries, there is a queue of countries wishing to join.
Мы с Китаем
We are in the People's Republic of China and are actively working with ASEAN countries in Southeast Asia.
в группе 20 у нас
In the group of 20, we are a group of like-minded people, mainly BRICS members, and those who share our position. We have many multilateral platforms where we interact,
где
and platforms that become centers of regional development.
которые
In Eurasia, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Eurasian Economic Union, by the way, ASEAN is also there.
экономический союз, Шанхайская организация сотрудничества, АСЕАН. Там же есть, кстати, и Совет сотрудничества арабских государств
And the Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf,
и целый ряд других объединений, в том числе в Южной Азии.
and many other associations, including South Asia.
Когда евразийский
Now,
континент становится
as they say, when Eurasia is becoming the locomotive of world economic growth,
этим региональным
God Himself has ordered these regional structures
свою роль
to play an increased role in the development of this geopolitical territory
территории.
and the cause of economic territory. And this process is taking place in the contacts between the SCO and ASEAN, the Eurasian Economic Union, and the SCO and the Russians are beginning.
Тоже. И все это складывается
In the words of President Putin, all of this is developing into a great Eurasian partnership, which is taking shape, which is absolutely natural, and which we see.
естественно, и которые мы видим как открытые для всех стран Евразии.
As an open country to all countries in Eurasia, including the European part of our continent, it would be foolish for Europe to use a wall to isolate Russia and isolate Russia.
И хочет Россию изолировать. Ну, то, что это глупо, даже нет нужды объяснять.